If the patient is truly critical, time is of the essence. And though every minute matters for a patient that's having a heart attack, that is having a traumatic event.
Calls are happening in the city of Burbank, and our firefighter paramedics are not able to respond on ambulances because they're tied up at the hospital.
It's not uncommon to roll into the back of a hospital, particularly when they're in the underserved populations and areas because the staffing's lower there, and have lines of ambulances outside to get into the emergency room, and then have lines of gurneys down the hallway leading to the beds in the hospital where you get treatment.
We are treating patients in the emergency room on our gurneys, literally next to a wall. That's why they call it wall times.
I'm on hospital property and I'm sitting with a patient on my gurney and I can see the ER, but I can't go in because there's no room. The hospital wall times, we got ambulances behind us, in front of us, and I'm stuck.
Our members have to wait sometimes in excess of an hour, up to 2, 3, 4 hours.
When I worked on the paramedic squad, I was tied up at the hospital for well over 2 hours.
We have units holding the wall for 8 hours. We have ALS units holding the wall for 3 hours.
3 to 4 hours has been a common daily occurrence in the city of Chula Vista with our ambulances being on wall times.
It's not uncommon now in San Diego area to see a gurney show up, and on the back of the gurney, next to the sheet, the blanket, the yellow, to see collapsible REI chairs because they know they're going to be waiting so long.
We recently had a pediatric full arrest come in, and we had no ALS unit available to respond because they're holding the wall at area hospitals.
And we don't have an ambulance to actually load that patient up, take them to the hospital. It's frustrating.
When we get to the hospital and those wait times are longer than 15 minutes, it actually impacts the residents that we serve.
When one ALS resource gets held at the hospital, another one gets pulled out. And like a domino effect, communities start to lose ALS services.
We have an ambulance sitting on the wall that's not running calls, that's not serving the citizens, the taxpayers.
We have extended on-scene times dealing with patients because our ambulances are backlogged.
There is nothing more devastating than performing CPR on somebody and calling for an ETA for the ambulance and hearing that they're not going to be there for 45 minutes. You're watching somebody's mom die. You're watching somebody's baby die. You're watching somebody bleeding out because they've just been shot, and there's no ambulance available, and there's nothing we can do.
There's not a lack of beds. There's a lack of nurses next to those beds. They don't want to pay the labor to be there.
My personal belief, this is the hospital's new business model. Why hire more nurses? Why bring in open more beds when we can have firefighter medics and BLS ambulance operators treat our patients?
These are private entities that have the money. They're making good money in healthcare and in the insurance industry, and they can add the appropriate staff and still have good profit.
We need our elected officials to step in to hold private businesses accountable. We need them to step in and set the standards.
AB 40 is going to be one of those things that impacts not only the resources, the firefighters, the first responders, but also is impacting in a positive way the communities and the residents that we serve.
Sometimes when pressed, hospital management makes changes, but they're never permanent. And AB 40 will deliver a permanent solution that with a standard that everyone can meet.
We can get our ambulances to the patients sooner, get them to the hospital sooner, and reduce that amount of wall time that's tying up super critical resources. I think it's going to change the face of EMS delivery, quite honestly.
Our firefighters are held to a very high standard as far as response times and getting the patient to the hospital and getting that proper turnover and continuity of care. Hospitals need to also hold up their end of the bargain.